No, why? First off, why haven't you watched Ted Lasso? Let's start there because I'm sure you've
Well,
heard of it.
first of all, why would I?
Because it's a phenomenon. A bunch of people watched it. They won
So,
they won a bunch of Emmys. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that you should watch it. Besides the fact it's just a good show.
no, bro. Like, first of all, I'm ADHD when it comes to TV, so I really have to be like in it to like even stay awake for anything. And I'm talking like movie theaters, at home TV shows. You know what? Honestly, the only thing that I've been like hooked on and I finished the whole thing and it's so old is Ballers.
Oh yeah, that is super old. Well, anyway, yesterday we went to there's a character on there that everybody loves, Roy Kent, and we went to the actual actors comedy show here in Sacramento. Um, yeah, which is
Nice.
probably the first late night thing that we've done really in years. We're like a go to bed early type of people, wake up early type of people. So yeah,
Right.
going to sleep at 1 was pretty rough for me, and then us having to be up at 5 to do this, I'm feeling it.
You're doing
Doing
it.
it.
Hey, and me on the reverse. I'm here today. Baby girl was sick. It's like my whole world is upside down. But she said last night, "Mommy, I feel better." I was like, "Okay, I can get it
There
together."
we go. Well, do you want to start the episode? All
Let's
right.
go. Let's do it.
Good morning and welcome to What's Good Sacramento. I'm ready to have a great day. Lisa, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Mag. Hey, what's up, y'all? All right, so let's get this party started with talking about what's hot, what's coming up with all the big events in Sacramento. You know, we're officially in fall, well, actually winter. Oops, and I can't even
We
believe how
were gone
quickly the
for a
time's
while, right?
going.
And now all of a sudden we've jumped all these seasons, and it's hard to tell because it's still hot outside. It's still sunny. Like this is I told Jazz this is the hottest November I've ever experienced.
It's crazy. I'm like, okay, so we finish October, you know, kicked that off with the bang, had a great Halloween. So for all of you that we missed that whole segment of your guys is getting ready, having a good time, we had a lot of fun. But you know, I was thinking about, let's talk about things that are coming up in Sacramento and give people reasons as to why we love where we live. And so when we're talking about winter and holidays and festivities, there were just a couple of things that came to mind. All-time favorite for me personally is Apple Hill. And the reason why I love that is just because it's like the feel. I think it reminds me of like when I was a kid in Sonoma County, just that crisp air. I mean, it gets a steady like 70s, but not too hot, but it does get a bit cold
Mhm.
up there. But you got anything from like apple fritters to apple cider, hot cocoa. They have the ponds, you know, pumpkin patches, but now we're kind of transitioning into Christmas. So they even have where you can go cut and trim your own Christmas tree, which is super exciting. Have you been up there?
Yes, you and I have talked about this before. I'm not like the biggest fan of Apple Hill,
Womp womp.
not because I hate delicious treats and the fresh smell of pine trees, but just because, I'm that's just not my thing. Like I don't really want to go walk around and frolic. So, um
Oh my gosh, and
yeah,
I love that.
but but my wife does like it, and I do like being out in nature. So it is a fun time. I do enjoy it, and not last year, but I think the year before, I actually went out with our broker and his family because they go out there and they get their Christmas tree, and so they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go out if you guys want to join." We went out and we watched them how they pick out their tree as a family and all of that stuff. And so it was a sort of weird anthropological experiment on like how do families work when you have kids and stuff.
Weird.
Well, we don't have children, and so
Like these are perfect ideas though, Mac, for family
yeah.
tradition. And you know who brought this to my attention was my
Mm,
8-year-old. She's like, Mommy, we need a tradition.
mm,
I was like, ooh, solid
yeah.
note.
Yeah, no, I think it is something like if I did have kids, it's something that I would do annually. Maybe not the tree thing because my neither of us really want a real tree in our house, but But
Yeah.
definitely go out there, get some hot cocoa, get some treats, maybe throw a little schnapps in there. I don't know, whatever your thing is.
They do. Well, I mean, they have everything for like every age group. They even have like beer cider. I
Mm,
can't say that I'm a big fan. I've tried
mm,
it like a sip, but I was like, it's very
yeah,
sweet. But I mean, everything apples. And then they've got like outdoor, what would you call them? Like little
yeah,
markets where you can buy stuff. I don't know. I bought this one. It's like a swirly wind
okay,
chime, but it has like stones in it. It looks super
yeah,
cool. But it's a great opportunity for photo ops too. But aside from that, when baby girl was talking to me about traditions, it had me thinking, like, what are some things that people like to do during the holiday season? So there's the Nutcracker. And actually, they're hosting it here by the Sacramento
hmm.
Ballet company, and that's December 9th through the 23rd. So that's definitely something to check out if you're like into it, or, like as a family or even as a couple. I can't say that I've been to the Nutcracker here. Have you?
So oddly enough, um, going to the Nutcracker was maybe one of the first pinnacle moments in my life that I felt rich. And I wasn't rich; I was a college
I
kid.
love
But
it.
there's something very upscale about the Nutcracker, and I got invited there when I was in college to go with one of my girlfriends and her family. She wanted to go to the Nutcracker, and I went, and it was a very cool experience. Um, but I'm not like a huge musical or play person. But I will say that I have seen it here in Sacramento, likely the same. The Performing Arts Center is likely where it will be, and it was pretty cool, right? It was pretty cool. So, yes, I have seen it, and I would recommend it for those of you looking for something fun to do out there in Sacramento.
Look at you, pinnacle of feeling
Yeah,
rich.
I did
I
because I
love
wore like
I love that
every. Well, it's
description.
different. Yesterday, I mean, I talked about how I went to a comedy show there, right?
Yes.
The vibe.
Did you dress up?
No, that's what I'm getting to. Nobody really dressed up for it, right? I mean, I looked a little dressed up, but the vibe for the Nutcracker, people showed
Yes,
up suited up. Like, yeah, I was in the
exactly.
button down. I wore a nice, not blazer, like peacoat, but people were suited up for it. So that's what I meant. It was like it's very much that sort of environment. Maybe not as
Right.
much if you go to like a matinee where there'll probably be kids. Maybe that's not. But if you go to the evening one, it definitely was.
Nice. So to take things on a different side or angle for, holiday fun festivities, Riverview Marina, it starts there and it's hosted by the Sacramento Yacht Club. They do like lighted boat
Oh
parade.
wow.
I have never watched that, but I was like, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something to do,
the
check
thing I
out.
love about our show is that you find stuff that I didn't even know that. I mean, I've lived out here since 2007, and I had never heard. First off, I knew there was a yacht club out here, but I didn't like. I've
Yeah.
only heard it in passing, but that is very cool. I would actually really like to see that because the one thing I will say seasonally that I really do like is going to like a Christmas tree lane.
Yeah, that was one thing I didn't highlight for today, but they actually do have it, and the Capitol just had their big, huge Christmas tree delivered, what, two
Yeah.
days ago or so? So that's definitely a location you can go if you like something like that. But in particular with the Yacht Club, they do host a lot of things out on the river every season because even 4th of July, it's like
Mm,
massive. And they've got all the yachts out there, and they do like, we've talked in other seasons, like different
yeah.
activities they do. But that in particular is like, you know what? I didn't even know that existed either, and I would totally go see like what is it all about.
Well,
So I'm sure it looks
I
beautiful
figure I'm
too.
only like a few, maybe like just like 3 or 4 really successful What's Good Sacramento episodes away from being able to afford a yacht. So should be part of that crew pretty quickly.
Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Exactly. So, let's talk about what's current on the news in the market. And, you brought this to my attention. We talked about it a little bit the other day, but why don't you bring us straight to what is really hot in regards to real estate?
Well, There's a lot going on right now. It's been a very eventful week in the real estate market. Why don't we go ahead and watch the TikTok video that you sent over, and we're gonna jump into that.
Good news for the real estate market. 2024 is expected to outshine 2023. I'm Christina Leavenworth with your real estate news. Just recently, the chief economist at the National Association of Realtors, Lawrence Yun, has some predictions. Yun dropped this news at the recent Naples Area Board of Realtors 2023 Economic Summit. He has some predictions. He predicts that mortgage rates could surge to 8% in the short term, but he does expect them to retreat around 7% by Thanksgiving. The good news? By early spring, he sees them easing further to around 6%. So why these predictions? Yoon lays out three key reasons. First, he anticipates the calming rents will help to keep the consumer price index in check and convince the Federal Reserve to halt interest rate hikes. Second, community banks, feeling the squeeze of high interest rates, should get some much needed relief. And lastly, he believes that the wide spread between government borrowing rates and mortgage rates will start to normalize. For more real estate advice and suggestions, especially in the Pensacola area, always reach out to myself, Christina Leavenworth, and the Leavenworth team.
Little sign off. I think we need to have something like that, right?
That's
And
solid.
for
She's
and for your local news in Sacramento, the Orbit team. Anyway, yeah. So I think this is really interesting because she doesn't know, and we don't know. The only people that really know are the Federal Reserves, and we sort of talked about this a little bit, right?
Mm.
Because they know what's going to come in advance, and barred there being any sort of major significant catastrophes. Um, yeah. Now, I will say that rates have dropped in the last couple days, and so they were sitting around 8%, and now they're sitting maybe closer to 7.5%, which is a big deal when you are trying to buy a home. It's going to save you a lot of money, not only in the immediate, but in over the life of your loan. And so, yes. Now, do we think the rates are going to go down to 6% by the middle of next year? I don't know, but I will say that I'm hopeful. It does seem trending wise, or at least sustained wise. There's only so long that this can go on before it's going to have significant impact on our economy, significant impact on families. And I worry that, we're getting to that point now because we know inflation's been off the charts. And so we have to go back. Now, we tell all of our buyers and all of our sellers and everyone who needs a home loan or commercial loan, whatever it is, the market's always going to fluctuate, right? Yeah, look, you got really excited for there for a second. You're like, "Oh yeah." Well, and here's the thing, right? Like people, you have to think of it as a business as much as you don't want to because you're purchasing your home.
But
The
I'm going to
bank,
pause you right there. Think about
yeah,
it as a business. So when you're making a business venture and you're kind of mapping out your plans, you don't just dive into it head
mhm,
first and hope for the best, right? There's a lot of
right,
preparation in advance in order to make that move. And really, do you really map out your business and launch it according to what's happening everywhere else around you? Or do you feel
mhm,
pretty confident by the time you take that leap of faith that you've already made the foundation? You know what the plan is. Now you know exactly what you're going to do and you're going to open, right? Same
right.
concept with real estate. So it's, again, I've said this before, it's when the timing is right for you because the market's constantly going to shift. But go ahead.
Mhm.
Yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, definitely considering it a business move for yourself, right? Even though there's a lot that goes into, what's a liability, what's an asset, things like that. But thinking about it as in you are doing a business transaction with somebody and they want to make money, right? And so a lot of people they sort of have this fear like, oh, rates are never going to go down. They're going to go down because what happens is all these people buy on the high, and then how do all of these banks get repeat business through refinances? So they want it to go back. They want it to go high. then they want it to go back down so then they can bring you back in the next 3 or 4 years to refinance you and then recapture a little bit of money from you. And so as much as I want to say, like, it's going to go down because we want the economy to be good, really, I mean, it's a cycle, right? You have to hit it at the right time and understand, right? You're not going to understand the full process here, but typically, we're going to see an increase in equity, especially here in California, but we might see small variances of drops and increases in home values.
Hmm.
And so that's sort of the sweet spot that we're trying to hit, is when can we get like the lowest home value with the lowest rate. And
Okay, but
unless
pause
you are,
right there. Think about on the
yeah.
flip side of that. You said people in the business, if we're thinking about it like a business venture,
Mhm.
want to make money. On the reverse side, people want to save money. So let's talk about the saving part. If I'm not going to save on the front end with the closing costs and the higher interest rates, am I actually going to start saving in equity? Yes. And that is your money piggy bank, your equity piggy bank for future reference to fall back on. So I want you to think about that concept when we're going into our business plan to purchase. Where are you going to
Yeah,
save? Because
yeah,
you're
that's a
not going to
great
save any
point.
money.
Yeah, that's a great point. We often talk about this in a very sort of black and white area because the barrier to entry into real estate is what hangs people up the most, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
don't talk a lot about what that sort of investment looks like while you're in it, right? These forced
Mm-hmm.
savings is a good way to think about it, or as Lisa beautifully, posed it, the piggy bank.
Right.
The money, and yeah, not all of it, but a portion of what you're paying towards your mortgage is going to be saved into equity, and it's going to, take your bill down, that this loan that you've taken out. But also, if you ever need to use it in the future, you have this savings that you likely wouldn't have. And I think, we do a first time home buyer seminar, and we sort of talked about that over 30 years, it's about the equivalent of saving 20 to $30,000 a year every single year for 30 years. And we ask people, can you do that like right now? And
Exactly.
and I think if people were honest with themselves, they would say no, because they're having enough trouble getting the down payment to even get in the house,
But I want you to
right?
think about this too. When you go into buying your first house, it's probably not going to be your forever house. So it's technically an investment, and it's the beginning stages of the building blocks towards your future goals. Whether that be I want that mansion on that hill, or I want to live in a different state, or I want to retire here. Like these are things that you have to think about, and you need to get your feet wet in the market, right? You got to get a piece of pie, the real estate pie. How are we going to do this? So it is a juggling act as far as balancing where we are right now with the economy, with the interest rates, the housing market. Because what happens on the flip side? Do we consider the fact that when prices drop significantly, like we've seen a year ago, it's a frenzy. It's a frenzy, and everybody jumps on board and everyone's buying. So, what happens to the prices of the house? The cost goes up. So, where am I really saving? On the front or the back, or somewhere
Yeah.
in the middle when I level out? So, this is what you have to consider when you're thinking about buying, which made me think about that article that came out, by the CAR. They released their projections of the 2024. Like, what is it going to look like? Everyone's saying, they think that the interest rates will drop a bit. And so I thought that was a great opportunity for us to talk about these things because it's very relevant right now.
Yeah, it's such a this is why we do road mapping for people, right? Because it's very complicated, and if you like a lot of things, if you don't utilize the purchase correctly, it becomes a liability, right? And if you do utilize it correctly, it can become an asset for you. And we help you sort of navigate. Now we understand that the majority of people that are buying a home and getting a home loan, they just want a place to call their own, right? They want a home. They want to be able to put their stamp on it. This is the Contreras household, and it is what it is. But there's smart ways to do this, and there's not so smart ways to do it, and this is really going to come down to the projection. So if you are thinking, and we're sort of assuming, yeah, maybe the middle of next summer, when we would have that spring boom, we might start to see a significant rate adjustment. Well, is now the time to be preparing for that, or is in March the time to be preparing for that? Now is right, and that's what we try to let people know. No matter when you're planning to buy, the people that are the most successful are the people that are already prepared, and so that's where we really need to be. But yeah, I would love to see the rates go back down, because I'll tell you what, home loan realtors, they are hurting in this industry. It is not easy right now, and a lot of people have left.
And
So,
we've talked about in previous episodes, I was just thinking about, like planning. We're talking about like, start thinking about these things and taking action now. So right now, like in the economy, inflation is just like everything's expensive. You're
mhm,
spending a lot more. Even if you're making a lot more, you're still spending a lot more and putting it out there, right? According to that article, though, they mentioned like the reserves are going to fall back, inflation continues to decline, which is a
mm,
positive. So if it starts to level out and the cost of goods goes back down to a reasonable amount, you can see
yeah,
those little bit of savings. Because I know even me personally, I'm really like nitpick about budgeting and seeing where I'm at, and I'm just like, dang, how much I spend like a week just on the bare
yeah,
essentials, right? So these are areas where you have to carve it out and then realign yourself to be more realistic about what can I really afford right now, and then what is my motivation behind the plan. Like, am I going to jump now or am I going to continue to save? So these are things you got to think about.
mm, right. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about something that's not quite. This is how I used to gauge the economy when I was younger. Okay, uh, chips. I've always been a huge chip person, especially when I was younger. And I always thought that 99 cent, medium sized bag of chips, that was the perfect number. You give a kid $1, they can take it, they can buy a bag of chips. I was like, there's no way they'll ever raise it, because you just give a kid $1 and then that's it. That's all they have to do. And then
Good.
it went up to like $1.25 and and now it's like almost $2 for a bag of chips. And like legitimately, I always
What size
think back
bag?
to
Are
that
you
sort
like
of is
me or like medium?
just like a yeah, not the large bags, not the little bags that are like 50 cents or 25 cents, like the normal, yeah, normal, yeah,
Yeah,
there you go, size of bags. And that's always how, and
like a gas
still,
station
no
bag.
matter how, yeah, no matter how much finance things I learn about the economy and real estate and homeless, I still always go back to the chips. I'm like, what are they charging at the store for chips? What's that at? So probably not the best indicator for figuring stuff out, but I will say that's how I do it. I do want to talk about something very big going on in the industry right now.
Ooh,
Yeah, I know it is. It's scary. Um, there
it's mind
if
blowing.
you guys are not yeah, if you guys aren't following, there's a lot of lawsuits against the National Association of Realtors, or NAR, or the NAR. And there was a verdict this week out in Kansas City for essentially against the NRA, that talks about it's an antitrust, with price, essentially price adjusting. And really, that's just fancy wording for saying that realtors were sort of scamming
Mm,
people to
mm,
make more
mm.
money. And now it's not officially done, because there is a pill, but there was an award, or a jury awarded $1.8 billion in damages. And I've been reading up on it, and that supposedly with antitrust and past presidents can go all the way up to $5 billion.
Isn't that
And so
crazy?
yeah, and so these sort of lawsuits that are out right now, and we're not going to get into the specifics of that case. We're using this sort of contextually so you guys can understand what might the real estate market look like in the future. And we've had big things like this in the past. Matter of fact, there was just a ruling that was done by the U.S. Department of Justice, for a $31 million settlement for redlining against City National Bank, right? So we're still dealing with things from the past about people in this industry cheating, the consumer in some way or another, right? Wronging them. And this is doing, but this is going to set a deeper precedence, because when you're suing the National Association of Realtors, that feeds down to us. It's already pretty expensive to be a realtor and a loan officer in general, and the costs are going to go down. But not only that, people sort of forget that those costs, they trickle away, and it might end up on the consumer in some other way. And this is especially true when we're considering really what this is leading to is how are commissions paid. Right
Yeah,
now,
right there.
commissions are paid.
For a second, I think we need to give just a tidbit of a background, just a synopsis of what this is all about. So, when you said the federal jury judged, right, the NAR and several large brokerages who
Yeah,
conspired, and the word conspired is huge, right, to artificially inflate commissions paid to sellers and to the agents. So, by sellers to the agents. So, those are the consumers you're referring to.
yeah.
And I want you to think about us as realtors. What kind of tainting of that R, that letter R that we put behind our name, what that will mean?
Hmm.
It's mind-boggling. And again, we're a smaller brokerage, but we're thriving, and we're very well versed in Sacramento. But if you look at the article and you start reading up on the details of these large name brokerages, you see them everywhere. And
Right. I want to say Berkshire Hathaway, owned by Warren
yes,
Buffett. I think Remax is in there.
EFP,
Um,
Coldwell, there was a ton of them. I was like, oh
yeah,
my gosh.
there's a
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of. I think Compass might have been part of that. Don't quote me on that, guys. But yeah, you're right. I think we already deal with the issue of trust. Trust is a big problem, and transparency. And yeah, this doesn't bode well for the industry.
It's
So
just, yeah.
yeah. So this sort of leads us into what I was saying was, um, typically the way that it'll work is the person selling the home or the seller will pay a commission to bring in buyers, and they'll pay for the seller, and they'll pay for the seller's agent and the buyer's agent, right? So we might see anywhere from like 5 to 6%. It's pretty typical out in our area. And the idea is essentially is that the seller is paying the commissions, but the buyer's bringing all the money that they're going to eventually end up with, right? And without the buyer, there's no sale. Without the commissions, you don't have the realtor. So it's going to be an interesting thing, because they're and then New York is already starting to implement this, that the structuring for who pays for who is going to change, right? And it potentially could be the buyer paying for the buyer, or the seller having more involvement with who is going, what they're willing to pay on that. I mean, what are you thinking on this?
It's funny because when we talked about it the other day, and I had a little bit of a different take on things, I was like, all right, so really, what does this mean? Like, if we think about just, like the bigger picture of how a transaction goes,
Mm,
traditionally, if you're representing the buyer and you're the buyer's agent, I don't talk to the seller directly. I deal
right,
with the seller's agent. I deal with my clients and everybody else involved in the transaction. But what would this really mean, and where are the motivations going to come? If I'm representing a buyer, I have a ready, willing one, and I see a beautiful house on the market that's exactly everything they need. At what point, and we're talking about ethically correct, will it be appropriate for me? Am I going to have to go directly to the seller and discuss what my charges are in order to bring
mm,
my ready, willing buyer to the table? And then am I going to sell buyers short from opportunities because, I'm not getting the right price for what I feel is due to me for a commission? So the motivations are going to change. It's going to change the whole game. And then the commissions they're predicting like this can rewrite the whole script for real estate, the industry as a whole.
mhm,
So I think, yeah, but from both ends, because now really what's the motivation behind the push to make that sale if I'm not
right,
guaranteed what I'm entitled to? And then you think about it, if I'm not I'm not on the listing side, so what makes your work worth more than what I'm doing? Because I'm bringing the
right.
person to the table, I'm going to coordinate everything throughout the transaction, right? So it's just crazy all around to think about
Mhm.
how much this is going to impact the industry.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. This might sound a little bit of like poor us. How are we gonna make money? But and yeah, in part it is. Let's be honest. Let's be transparent. I mean, this is how we put food on our table. Some to feed their kids, right? I mean, I have a dog. He needs to eat food, and that's the reality.
That's your kid.
But yeah, but on another end, you and I work on somewhat of a higher level. You want to build a team, like I'm doing, coaching in our brokerage, and ethically, we want to set precedents, at least in our sphere, of how do we act, how do we move forward, how do we do this in a way that we are being ethical as well as professional, but also handling the things they need to do. And right now, we're able to sort of do our job where we don't have to discuss a lot of that because it's sort of set the way that the listings agent do, and where it doesn't matter for us. We're going to take them wherever we need to take them. But if we need to start locking people into contracts very early, we need to set prices very early. All of this sort of stuff um, can have a trickling effect as far as how the consumer is affected. And I think you and I sort of approach real estate very in the same way, where we really do care about like how do we do the best thing possible. Like it's not always about how do we make the most money, but how do we have the most impact in our our purchasers' lives, our buyers' lives, or our sellers' lives. We do our best for that, and I think that makes it feel better for us for what we're doing,
I'm
right? So
curious too, Mac. What do you think the impact will have on sellers? Like, let's talk about this because buyers and sellers in our day are very well versed as far as real estate. They watch TikTok, they see social media, they watch the news, they see what's trending. They're going to hear about this. And so, how is that going to impact sellers? They're going to get savvy and smarter to what's going on. And they might feel a lot different now going forward about what they're willing to pay.
yeah, I think the issue at hand in a lot of ways is, I mean, this could be the NRA's fault, or it could be the California Association of Realtors. I don't know whose job this is, but it's very unclear what realtors do just across the board, right? And so almost always when people hear about commission checks for what realtors are making, they think it's too much. They say, "Oh, you're getting paid way too much. It's ridiculous." Um, and so that's sort of the problem I see at hand is like because nobody really understands what goes into this, sort of the legal capacity, all of the infrastructure, all of the education, the time of marketing and development
Time,
and nurturing with
time.
your
That's
client.
this
Yeah,
time. If you
it's
convert,
very long.
yes.
Yeah, it's very long. It's very expensive. And so I think innately sellers are just going to be like, well, they don't deserve what they're getting. And anytime you don't pay an area well enough, you don't get the best people. And you see this in education already. No, not saying any of you teachers are bad that are out there, but I think it's fair to say that a lot of teachers feel underpaid. And a lot of great teachers are leaving the education industry because of this, right? And you're going to see that same effect, I believe, on the real estate side if that ends up happening. Honest, trustworthy, reliant realtors are going to be leaving, as well as I think that the sellers are they're going to want. I mean, anybody wants to get as much as they can for as little, right? And that's like
Mhm.
human nature, I think. So I do see it going that way, and I'm not sure how that's going to level out. But looking from the consumer's perspective, great. I don't have to pay as much. That's awesome. That's what I want. More money in my pocket. So it's a balance of representation versus what's sort of good for you. And I think anybody that's ever had to get a lawyer or been in a position where they feel like, and not to say that we're lawyers, but we do handle some aspect of real estate law. And mortgage law, the you when you're in a position where you might have to do that, you sort of start to think, who's the best person I can afford, and that's sort of where I think people might go on the real estate side. Is I need to sell this house and I need to get it sold quick, or I want to get it sold for as high as I can. And
Mhm.
so, who's going to bring the most value? And I think that could be a good thing for the market.
Nice thought on there. That's a good point.
So, yeah, why don't we jump in? I mean, we spent a lot of time on that. I will sort of end this with um, sort of an interesting, maybe funny, not probably not to him, but this all happened, and then I think within a day or two, the CEO of the National Associations of Realtors, Bob Goldberg, did step down and
Mhm.
retire.
Right.
So, yeah, clearly heads are rolling at the NAR right now. I was even looking. I was
Let
like,
me
what sort of
take
jobs?
the
What
leave.
what jobs do they have open over there? They might need a little bit of help on their PR side.
Right.
Help them out. So, but yeah, I mean, that happens. So, why don't we talk a little bit about what's going on in El Dorado, Lisa?
Yes. So, to experience an area or community like El Dorado, I mean, honestly, like it's so beautiful. And I think I personally like it because it has hills. It's like
Mm,
as opposed to the flatlands of Sacramento, we actually get into the more hilly part of it. Now, out there, the population, I was kind of surprised 103 or 193, a little
mm,
higher than that.
yeah.
Um, Interesting fun fact, there's about 76% homeownership versus the 24% renters, and that's according to niche. So I thought,
Wow.
like when we're thinking about communities and where we want to buy, this is our investment, right? So this is where I'm going to settle and nest, and I'm going to build my equity piggy bank. So
Mm,
these types of things are important to some degree because essentially when you think about renters, I don't know, sometimes people have a tainted thought about renters, like they don't really treat the houses like their own with
mm,
respect, right? And like maybe the neighborhoods aren't upkept right or whatnot. So I thought that's actually really good to point out. They are ranked 5 out of 55 for the best communities for retirees. So
oh wow.
isn't that
I
interesting?
mean, that makes sense because it's a little higher end, nicer area. I could definitely see that.
I mean, I could definitely see a house on a hill with a little balcony, drinking my coffee, looking at the view. I mean, why not? They've got a lot of beautiful scenery, golf
Mm,
courses, et cetera, right? So then we
yeah.
think about the school systems out there because I know, like, when I'm talking to buyers, I want to get a background of like what's important to you, whether it's like a new couple or are they a family, first time they're going to start a family. Like, these things are important when you're drawing out and looking for areas to purchase.
Mm,
And I know in particular schools are very important. So El Dorado Union High School District is there. They're ranked 78.28% and with a 98% graduation rate. So I think that's pretty darn good.
at 98, that's pretty high. I mean, it should be that high. Really, in reality, it should be that high. But that is pretty high.
Yeah, and there's like you see like a good foundation stability. You think about like the teachers because you referenced teachers earlier in the
Mm,
conversation. So teachers are leaving the industry. Motivation behind they're not getting paid enough. So when you're starting to look at where am I going to settle, build my family, have them go to school, education is huge, right? Because we're putting our children in the hands of these caretakers and educators for a period of time. So you want to look at, well, what are the outcomes?
yeah.
So jumping from graduation rates to AP participation, 25%, which I thought isn't bad, for
Hmm.
students in high
Yeah.
school.
Yeah, it's a great area if you're looking to get into a good school district. You're looking, especially like clearly you said there's a lot of retirees out there, but also there's a lot of family out there, and there's great sports and there's good competition, and that matters. The competition portion, I mean, in
Mm,
education. I'm very oddly fascinated with college like acceptance things. And
uh-huh,
so I watched some stuff from like Stanford and Yale and from their admission staff on what they look at for applications, right?
uh-huh,
And how competitive your school is really important. If you have a 98% graduation rate, you have a 35%, you have a large class, and you're one of the top people there, that might bode a little more well for you than where I went to school, where there was 150 kids in my graduating class. So
and where was this?
this was in the Central Valley,
Okay.
country sort of country life.
Yeah.
But either way, these sort of things matter, and I think if you're looking to move out there as a family, um, and maybe this is so far off you're not considering, but we do consider it, right? What do you want your family dynamic to look like in the next 18 years that your kid has to go to school? And we look at not only just the schools, but like what are the surrounding activities? Do you want them to be in sports? Do you want them to do extracurriculars? Are you a sort of family that likes to go to the movies, which I throw that out because there's an IMAX in El Dorado Hills that I love, and that's where we go watch movies. So
Nice, nice. And again, me on the flip side, ADHD when it comes to movies, can't say that would be my highlight. But
yeah.
if I was going to go to a movie, now I know, right? Hey, I can check that out. I did do, which isn't in that area, but what was it recently we did? Where you do movies and food? It's a theater. I think it's out in Rock.
Yeah. I haven't been there yet, but I do want to go.
Pretty cool. I mean, it was a little distracting. I was like, all right, I see you. But, back to El Dorado Hills, definitely if you're seeking a community, whether you're, looking to downsize, retire soon, or you're a brand new family wanting to start, there's definitely a lot more that I can share with you and, draw out the community, show you what's hot and happening on the market, what's available to you. And that could be outside of this conversation or our talk show today. But just to kind of wrap it up with that community, overall, it's a great community, offers a lot of outdoor activities, sports, family oriented. And, they're ranked 13 out of 55 in counties for best public schools. So there you go.
And gotta love El Dorado Hills. Check it out. Let us know if you're interested. We are to the end of the talk show, guys. We're rounding it up. And as always, you know what? I'm going to talk to the camera for this because this is that important. All right. Do your community analysis with Lisa. Do your market analysis or your Jesus, I already forgot the name. The market analysis for you, but do get a hold of us and do your community and market analysis with Lisa. Get a hold of me. And let's work on your credit report analysis. Let's put you in a position to be successful. If you're looking to sell your home, hey, look no further. We're here for you. We're going to get it done for you, right? So
honesty, loyalty, time proficient, doesn't matter what's going on with the NAR or big brokerages. We're here, we're stable, and we're ready to serve you. That's what I have to say. Yeah.
So, get those done. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.